There are many dentists who dedicate their lives to protecting smiles and easing pain. But hidden among them are those who twist that trust into something far darker. In their hands, the chair becomes a trap, the tools become weapons, and every patient is just another victim. To make sure you never cross paths with monsters like these, don't forget to like this video and subscribe, because the stories ahead are not the kind you want to face unprepared. Dentistry is supposed to be built on trust. Patients open their mouths, close their eyes, and put their well-being in another person's hands. In Florida, that trust was shattered when a woman pretended to be a dentist, gluing fake veneers into people's mouths with nothing more than super glue. Infections spread, teeth were ruined, and lives were left scarred. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. Knowing stories like this might be the only way to avoid ending up in a chair like hers.
Well, this is awful. A woman from Florida was just arrested after posing as a dentist with absolutely no licenses, and she was installing fake veneers into people's mouths with crazy glue, like the super glue you could buy at Target or Home Depot. Now, if you don't know much about dental work, this is absolutely insane because giving someone veneers is not like a 5-minute crafts DIY project of sorts, and as you'd expect, a bunch of her clients got nasty infections and damaged teeth. I will say though, anyone who thought it would be a good idea to get veneers here is kind of an idiot. I did some research on where they were running this whole operation, and this is what their setup looked like for these procedures. For reference, this is what a dentist's office is supposed to look like for a procedure like this, and they're using what looks like a $15 ring light you could buy on the TikTok shop. So yeah, a lot of these people probably aren't the brightest to think that this was a good idea.
It isn't just the act that disturbs me, it's the image it leaves behind. A bright ring light, the sharp smell of glue, and the sound of someone convincing you that everything is fine. That moment when routine care becomes irreversible damage feels like a trap snapping shut. It's less a medical procedure, more a performance of trust turned into cruelty. And if this story shows how deception can wear a professional mask, the next case, minus 32 teeth gone, strips that mask away to reveal something even more terrifying underneath. Heartbreak often leaves scars, but this one left an empty smile. After being left for another woman, a dentist's pain turned into something far more sinister. When her ex walked into her office, she saw not a patient, but a chance for retribution. The chair became her weapon, and revenge became her treatment plan. Take a look.
She removed all 32 teeth from her boyfriend's mouth because he cheated on her. After months of dating, he dumped her for another woman. Heartbroken and betrayed, she tried to move on, but then he showed up at her dental office one day for an appointment. It was supposed to be just another routine procedure, but when she saw him lying there in the chair, vulnerable, all her pain came rushing back. She had the perfect chance for revenge, and she wasn't about to let it slip away. Not wanting to let him walk out the door like nothing happened, she made a decision. She gave him a heavy dose of anesthesia to keep him out cold, locked the door, and started pulling his teeth. He had no idea what was happening. One by one, she removed every single tooth. His molars, his canines, even his incisors. His jaw was bandaged tightly when he woke up. He felt like something was terribly wrong, but he couldn't figure out what. At home, he removed the bandages, only to discover the shocking truth that
the violence hides in the silence of the room. Each sound of extraction echoes like a countdown, each pull erasing another piece of him. This wasn't chaos, it was discipline, carried out with chilling precision. By the time the bandages came off, his smile was nothing but absence. Cruelty doesn't always scream. The next case, Dr. Kenny Smiles, shows how it can whisper while destroying everything in its path. Dentistry promises safety, precision, and trust. For one young woman, all of that was shattered the moment she walked into Kenny Smiles' office. What should have been a routine treatment became a nightmare of sedation, manipulation, and fear. By the end, her teeth were destroyed and her sense of safety was gone with them. Watch closely.
The Dr. Kenny rabbit hole has unfortunately gotten much darker. A verified former patient of Dr. Kenny has reached out to me and shared that she was just 18 years old when she was victimized by Dr. Kenny in the worst way imaginable. She has now bravely decided to come forward and share her story in order to warn other women about how dangerous Dr. Kenny truly is. I will be keeping this victim's identity anonymous, similar to the last victim testimonial that I shared. This girl was 17 years old when she began to have some trouble with her teeth, so she elected to reach out to Dr. Kenny on social media, as he had previously done one of her family members' teeth. She inquired about his dental services, and Dr. Kenny agreed to do her teeth, but only outside of business hours. Just after this young girl turned 18, she excitedly had her mother drop her off at Smile Again Dental. When she walked inside, she realized that she was the only one present in the office. There was no other staff present, only Dr. Kenny and her. Her mother, not thinking really anything of it, just thinking she was dropping her daughter off at a dentist appointment, planned to return when her daughter called her. After Dr. Kenny greeted her, he brought her back to one of his chairs. It was at this time he began recording her and asking about her story, similar to the other videos that we've seen on Dr. Kenny's social media. Dr. Kenny then gave this girl some kind of sedative that made her feel very loopy and that she didn't have control of her movements. In the middle of Dr. Kenny doing her teeth, she had to get up and go to the bathroom to rinse out her mouth as she was bleeding very heavily. It was at this time that she realized that Dr. Kenny had shaved her teeth down to the size of a grain of rice. All of the blood and how small her teeth were shaved down did not seem right to her. When this 18-year-old girl returned from the bathroom, she was visibly shaken up, and Dr. Kenny offered to give her a back massage to help relax her. This 18-year-old girl, frozen in fear with Kenny standing over her and her teeth unfinished, unsure of what to do, reluctantly agreed to let Kenny rub her back. In this moment, she describes feeling afraid that if she didn't agree, Dr. Kenny might get angry and not finish her teeth. Go to part 2.
This case feels suffocating because the terror isn't loud. It's subtle, creeping in while she's alone in that chair. The blood, the sedation, the false reassurance, each detail piles onto the dread. The back massage offer makes the entire encounter shift from malpractice into something predatory. It's the kind of story that leaves you uneasy long after the details fade. Kenny's chair was a trap disguised as care. The next case, 20 years without brushing teeth, reveals another mask of safety hiding something even darker. 2 decades. That's how long one man lived without ever brushing his teeth. Fear kept him away from dentists. Fear even kept him from touching his own mouth. Over the years, every meal layered more and more tartar until his teeth were buried in a cement-like shell. By the time he finally sat in a chair, his mouth had become a time capsule of neglect. Dare to watch this.
One gentleman hadn't brushed his teeth for 20 years. This gentleman had dental phobia. He was afraid to go to the dentist, and he was even afraid to brush his own teeth. In fact, I asked him how he was able to eat because his teeth were so heavily caked with tartar. He said, well, he just has soft food that he can kind of mash in his mouth. His breath was not too pleasant because of his dental phobia. So we removed all of that tartar. We did it under IV sedation, so he was asleep and he was able to tolerate it. It took a long, long time, hours and hours, to remove all of this cement-like tartar that was there. And it saved his teeth and it changed his life. And it's made a different man out of him. I'm Dr. Nemeth. Remember, healthy mouth, healthy body. This is your friend.
The thought of living like this makes your skin crawl. Soft food replacing real meals, breath heavy with decay, a mouth slowly closing in on itself. It's unsettling because it isn't sudden horror. It's horror stretched across 20 years of silence. When the tartar finally came off, it wasn't just teeth being revealed, it was a life pulled back from the edge. From decades of neglect to cruelty carried out in a single moment. The next case, Dr. Glennon Engleman twists the idea of dental care into something far more disturbing. Behind the smile of a dentist, Glennon Engleman was running something far darker than a clinic. He wasn't just treating patients, he was pulling women to his orbit and turning them into weapons. Wives, lovers, even his own secretary were convinced to kill for him, all in exchange for insurance money. What looked like charm was nothing more than manipulation sharpened into murder. Time to see it.
The womanizer, Dr. Glennon Engleman, was so obsessed with women that he used them to commit his crimes. He even convinced his wife to date another man and then kill him so she could collect the $64,000 insurance money they could split together. He also convinced his partner's wife to kill her husband so she could collect the $37,000 insurance money. He convinced his clinic secretary to marry a patient at his clinic and then kill him for the $60,000 insurance money. He also convinced a patient to kill her husband, father-in-law, and mother-in-law, all for $340,000. He was arrested in 1980 and sentenced to 60 years in prison. He died in 1999.
The horror here is in the persuasion. He never had to pull the trigger himself. He planted ideas and let others do the killing. Every smile, every flirtation was just another step toward blood and money. It's chilling to think of a dentist's chair leading not to treatment, but to a trail of graves. Engleman turned affection into a weapon. The next case, Clara Harris, reveals how trust in another dentist spiraled into something just as nightmarish. Clara Harris built a life most people would envy, a thriving dental practice, a family, and a marriage of 2 decades. But perfection cracked the moment she learned her husband's secret. The betrayal cut deep, exposing an affair that shattered everything she believed in. What followed wasn't reconciliation, but a violent decision that turned heartbreak into homicide. This is the moment.
What would you do if you caught your partner cheating? This dentist's response ended everything. Clara Harris seemed to have it all: a successful dental practice, a beautiful family, and a 20-year marriage. But when she hired a private investigator, she uncovered the devastating truth. Her husband David was having an affair with his secretary. Clara confronted them at a hotel, begging David to choose their marriage. When he refused to leave with her, Clara's heartbreak turned to rage. In a moment that would change everything, she got behind the wheel and deliberately struck him down in the parking lot, an act the private investigator shockingly captured on camera. She was convicted of murder. One moment of fury destroyed 2 lives forever. Was it a crime of passion or calculated revenge?
This story feels heavy because it shows how quickly love can turn into something unrecognizable. The begging, the refusal, and then the roar of the engine, it's a sequence that builds like a tragedy written in real time. Watching rage take the wheel is like watching reason disappear in a single breath. What lingers is the silence after impact when nothing can be undone. Harris's fury ended in the screech of tires. The next case, dentist James Craig, begins with a smile but hides something far more dangerous. Angela Craig trusted her husband with her life. He was a dentist, a provider, a father of 6. But the man she leaned on was also the one quietly poisoning her. While she lay in the hospital, texting him that she felt drugged, James Craig was already preparing his next move. What looked like sickness was really a murder plan, measured out in powders and hidden in protein shakes. Let's start the horror.
Angela Craig, a mother of 6, suddenly fell sick and her condition kept getting worse in the hospital. She even texted her husband James Craig saying, "I feel drugged." Police discovered that James, a dentist, had secretly ordered arsenic and potassium cyanide. A suspicious package with cyanide was delivered to his clinic. Doctors later confirmed that Angela had been poisoned through her protein shakes. Just days later, she was declared brain dead. Investigators revealed James was hiding an affair and financial troubles, and even tried convincing his own daughter to make a deepfake video to cover it up. In July 2025, James Craig was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison without parole. A tragic story where the husband turned out to be the killer.
The terror here is quiet, almost invisible. No breaking glass, no raised voices, just poison slipping into something as ordinary as a protein shake. The cruelty is in how intimate it was. Every sip came from the hands of someone she loved. That slow betrayal is far more chilling than any sudden act of violence. One life ended drop by drop. The story that follows Gilberto Nunees unravels in an entirely different, but equally disturbing way. A man slumped in his car, a body that looked like it simply gave up. But the autopsy told a different story. His veins carried midazolam, a sedative traced back to a dentist's office. At the center was Dr. Gilberto Nunees, entangled in an affair and obsessed with tearing apart a marriage. When manipulation failed, prosecutors claimed he turned to poison. Now comes the proof.
And here we have Dr. Gilberto Nunees, 2015 Kingston, New York resident and local dentist. Gilberto Nunees was indicted on charges of second-degree murder in connection with the November 2011 death of Thomas Coleman. Coleman was found dead in his car in a parking lot, and the medical examiner would later rule that his death was caused by poisoning using a powerful sedative, midazolam. At his trial, prosecutors asserted that Nunees was having an affair with Coleman's wife, Linda. They alleged that Nunees met up with his former friend and one-time neighbor, Coleman, in the parking lot. There, Nunees administered an overdose of the sedative from his dental practice to get his rival out of the way. Prosecutors claim that Nunees was an obsessive and possessive lover who concocted a series of bizarre schemes trying to break the couple up. Nunees even allegedly impersonated his own mother, imploring Linda to leave her husband. With all the efforts failed, prosecutors said killing him was the easiest route out. Nunees' defense team argued that Coleman had died of a heart attack rather than the midazolam poisoning, adding that it's impossible to prove that Nunees had administered a drug, while the trial found him not guilty concerning the death. Two subsequent court proceedings found him guilty of forgery, perjury, and insurance fraud. In 2017, Nunees was sentenced to a maximum of 7 years in a state prison. He was released early after serving 19 months of a potential 7-year in-state prison sentence. Again, I guess money pays for those trials, man.
The strangest part is how ordinary it all looked on the surface. A man dead in his car, a dentist denying everything. Yet beneath that calm exterior was a trail of lies. Fake letters, impersonations, fraud stacked on fraud. It feels less like a single crime and more like a web designed to trap everyone around him. Even with the murder charge slipping away, the rod of manipulation remained impossible to wash off. Nunees walked out without the weight of a murder sentence, but not without stain. Next comes Dentist Colin, where the mask of respectability doesn't just crack, it shatters. By day, Colin played the role of a devout Christian and respected dentist. Behind closed doors, his life unraveled into secrecy and betrayal. What started as a quiet affair with Hazel, another married member of his church, soon exploded into scandal. When their secret was exposed, Colin's carefully built image collapsed, and with it came something much darker. Let's face the nightmare.
So this woman pulls a YouTube prank that's so horrific, it ends up unaliving a man and nearly starts an international conflict. Now her name is 𝗀𝗃. She's 25, she's from Indonesia, but she's working in Malaysia as an escort. And she does that so she can send money back to her parents in Indonesia. But then one day, she meets a producer. The producer tells her he works for a production company of a huge YouTube channel. And they make like YouTube pranks and stuff. And he says he can get her an acting gig on his YouTube prank show. And the best part is that it pays pretty well. She can quit escort work, she can also make all this money and send it back to her parents in Indonesia. Plus, they're gonna pay her the equivalent of $96 per prank, which is a lot of money to 𝗀𝗃. So of course, she says yes. And pretty quickly, she's introduced to the head of the YouTube channel, this guy, Mr. Chang. And Mr. Chang and the other producers, they start getting her to pull these pranks on people in public. They'll like go to a public place and she'll like walk up to a total stranger and just randomly start holding their hand. Or they'll do a prank where they put like baby oil on her hands and she'll like run up behind a stranger and be like, guess who? Which smears the oil all over their face. It's pranks like that. And so she does a bunch of these pranks over the course of like a month. Meanwhile, the prank channel has also recruited this other woman to do pranks. Now her name is Dawn, and we'll get to her. But one day, the producers call 𝗀𝗃 in to meet them at the airport, because they're gonna do this big prank there. So she's there, and she's with Mr. Chang, but Chang tells 𝗀𝗃 there's actually another actress involved this time. And that actress will be doing the same thing, and it's Dawn. So the victim of this prank is actually gonna get double pranked. First by 𝗀𝗃, then by Dawn. But anyway, Mr. Chang pours a bunch of baby oil on 𝗀𝗃's hands, and then he points to a man out in the airport that he wants her to prank. This man. So minutes later, 𝗀𝗃 sneaks up behind the man, and then from behind she puts her hands over his eyes, like guess who, or whatever. And of course, this smears the oil all over him. And then about 3 seconds later, Dawn approaches the man, and she smears her hand on his face as well. And then 𝗀𝗃 and Dawn like giggle or whatever, and then they run away to the nearest bathroom to wash the oil off their hands. Meanwhile, the poor man, he's confused and a little freaked out, and he goes over to the airport security guards and he tells them that some random women just smeared something on his face and that now he doesn't feel well. So security escorts the man to the airport medical center, and his condition quickly gets worse. It is very apparent something is seriously wrong. So they rush him to the hospital, and on the way, he suddenly just dies. So who was this man? Well, let's call him Nam. Now, Nam is an interesting guy, because growing up, his dad was a dictator, the supreme leader of a little country you might have heard of called North Korea. Now, Nam, being the oldest son, he was always first in line to be the next supreme leader. But as he grew up and became an adult, Nam grew to be a little more progressive, a little more open-minded to reforming things for the better, something his conservative dictator dad really didn't like. But one day, Nam is traveling abroad, and he's in Japan, in the airport, and suddenly, boom, he gets arrested. Why? Because he's traveling with a fake passport trying to conceal his identity. Turns out, Nam was in Japan because he's low-key trying to take his son to visit Tokyo Disney, which in his country is a huge no-no. And once the news of Nam's arrest gets back to Dictator, Dictator is pissed. I mean, the heir to the throne can't be seen going to Disneyland in Tokyo? Disneyland represents capitalism, and worst of all, it represents America. And it's just everything North Korea stands against. So this arrest is a huge source of embarrassment for Dictator. And this Disneyland fiasco eventually leads to Nam being passed over for the position of supreme leader. And when Dictator eventually dies, his other son, Nam's half-brother, Kim Jong-un, he becomes the new dictator. And Kim Jong-un hates Nam. And Nam's been living internationally for a while in China. But regardless, Kim Jong-un has been trying to have him assassinated for years. And eventually, he and his regime come up with this elaborate plan. They're gonna trick two random women into unknowingly killing Nam. And the women end up being 𝗂ci and 𝗁. And when 𝗂ci and 𝗁 are at the airport that day, the producers have both of them touch Nam's face with baby oil as a prank. But what 𝗂ci and 𝗁 don't know is that's not baby oil on their hands. No, on 𝗂ci's hands, they put, we'll just call it chemical A. And on 𝗁's hands, they put what we'll call chemical B. And when you combine these two compounds, it creates a nerve agent called VX, or venomous agent X. A nerve agent that has been banned around the world because it's considered a weapon of mass destruction and will kill you instantly, especially if someone smears it on your face. So Nam dies that day, right after they touch him. And Mr. Chang and all the other producers who set this up, they're all actually North Korean spies. And they all just flee, and they eventually get away. Of course, North Korea denies being involved in any of this. And this creates tensions between Malaysia and Indonesia. But since those producers all fled, that leaves the only two people connected to the crime, 𝗂ci and 𝗁. So 𝗂ci and 𝗁 are in the airport bathroom washing their hands. And they walk out and they look around and all the producers are nowhere to be found. So 𝗂ci and 𝗁 are just like, all right. And separately, the two women each go home. And they have no idea that anyone died. About a day later, they each get arrested. And 𝗂ci is so clueless as to what's going on, she literally thinks her arrest is part of the prank show. Like, haha, yeah, right, guys, sure, I'm being arrested, okay. But Malaysian police arrest them and they charge them with murdering Nam. 8 months later, their trial starts. And if 𝗂ci and 𝗁 get convicted of murder, by law, they'll get the death penalty, by hanging. So the stakes in this are really high. So this trial goes on for 2 years. And the Indonesian government has to get involved, because 𝗂ci is technically their citizen. And these women are in jail this whole time. And then one day, suddenly, like out of nowhere, the charges against 𝗂ci are just dropped. And cool, 𝗂ci goes free. Apparently the Indonesian government was eventually able to intervene and they negotiated her release. While 𝗁 does not get out, but she does plead guilty to a lesser charge and eventually they do let her go. Here's what 𝗁 looks like in real life. And here's what 𝗂ci looks like in real life. Wow, a crazy story. Shout out to North Korea.
The chilling part here isn't just the hypocrisy, it's how quickly faith and family were traded for lies. A man who preached devotion turned out to be living two lives, one holy, one corrupted. Once the mask slipped, there was no going back. Only destruction waited. Watching the fall feels less like a mistake and more like a spiral into something irreversible. From fraud to poison, from affairs to revenge, these stories show how even the people we're taught to trust can hide the darkest secrets. A smile can comfort or can deceive, and behind a dentist's chair, horror often wears a mask of care. What makes these cases disturbing isn't just the cruelty, but how ordinary they looked until the truth came out. Don't forget like and subscribe to stay safe.